Welcome to Hello You. Yes, you. The podcast that opens up the full spectrum of mental health like never before. We're not here to skim the surface. We go deep into every corner of the human experience. From international athletes to high-powered CEOs, everyday heroes to global change makers. Our guests bring raw, real, and radically different perspective on what mental health really means. This is your space, a place for truth, stories, and connection. Whether you're thriving, surviving, or somewhere in between, we're here to remind you you're not alone. So pull up a chair, take a breath, and let's talk about the stuff that matters. Welcome to the most open, honest, and inclusive mental health conversation in the world. I'm your host, Dan Darwin, and welcome to Hello You. And today's guest, we have Jarrod Speed. Jarrod, welcome.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Can you tell the listeners and the watchers and whatever it is now in this generation that we have, tell them a little bit about you. Tell us about you, Jarrod.
Right, well, my name's Jarrod. You just introduced me. So I'm 43. I've proud father of 3 girls, 16, 8, soon to be 7 very shortly. Got a wonderful partner. I'd like to say I'm a family man first.
Yep.
I'm a career police officer in the MOD police.
Okay.
A little bit different to Home Office forces, but so I've been in that now 20 plus years. Probably armed, capable in that for a good 17 of that. But something that I'm pivoting towards. Like I said, I've been in the police for 20 years. For reasons I'll obviously get into, I've always had to have a bit of a side hustle going on.
Okay.
So joined the police 2005, and quite literally in the training school, my girlfriend, my partner at the time, fell pregnant, not before I'd even left training school. So first, I've got to get a house, I've got to get a mortgage, got to get a nest prepared for little one coming along. Unbeknownst to me and my girlfriend at the time, she had undiagnosed medical conditions that we wouldn't have been aware of. So around the 23 and a half week mark, we're out. I can tell you exactly where we were. We're in a pub in Bishopstoke, having lunch, and she said, starting to get, feels like a contraction. So, and it's round about that time you get the fake contractions, and it's at that time you get those.
Braxton Hicks.
Yeah. And so anyway, I said, and then she said, they're quite intense. I said, let's get you to the hospital, where we got told you're going into labour. So we're then up the hospital. So this was in October 2005. I've probably been in the police, past the training school, on the ground for about 3 months at this point. And they pretty much said she's going into labour. We didn't understand why. And they said, when this baby comes along, it's going to be very young, and it's on the top end of before they say they won't resuscitate a baby. Okay. Well, they said, do you want us to do that? And of course, you're like, yeah, of course. Yeah. We want to save this baby. So gave birth to my son, Mason. And he was in intensive care for a month before he passed away. So
sorry to hear that.
And it's horrible. Death. No one should have to bury their child, which we had to do. So from that point on, we basically went and saw a consultant who said it's an unfortunate thing, but you can have children. Like you need to go on and try again if you want to try again.
Okay.
So we've tried again, fell pregnant. This time with twins, and at 23 weeks, same thing.
Okay.
So my girlfriend had to give birth to my son and my daughter, Bower and Madison, and we had to hold them in our arms till they passed away. They wouldn't resuscitate them. They were just a little bit before the threshold. So from then on, having a pretty tough time, really. I'm having to go to work. At this point, the police, I actually had a really good chief inspector who was spot on, a guy called Mark Corder, who, great guy, and he just said, anything you need, take all the time you need. But during all of this, my son dying, then my twin son and daughter, I'm not really grieving for all of this because I'm taking care of a completely distraught girlfriend.
Yeah.
Who is just blames herself. Luckily, we had a really good GP who said they want you to go through this again. We're meant to have 3 separate pregnancies where this happens before any investigations can go on to why it's happening. However, if you don't mind, and she said, I'm going to put this down as 3 separate births. So we said, please, because we need to find out. We can't, like, there's no way we can go through this again. So it turned out she had a few things wrong with her that she could never have known about. Problems with her uterus, problems with her blood. It's called sticky antiphospholipid syndrome, so it's like sticky blood, they call it. And a weak cervix opening. So there's all these things that culminated that there wasn't enough space for the baby, so to speak, and that because she had a weak cervix opening, it's more likely to give way and not enough oxygenation in the blood because of this antiphospholipid syndrome. So simply by putting a stitch in and giving her blood thinning drugs, we then had another baby, my daughter, who's now 16, Phoebe. And yeah, and we would never have known if it hadn't have been for this GP. But during all of this time, my went on to be my wife. She suffered terribly with her mental health, to which I don't think she ever recovered from it. There's, a lot of, it's a bad thing to happen once, but to have that happen twice.
Well, technically 3 times. 3 times.
And it's, three separate little lives that I've, that I'll never get to see their futures, won't get to see them grow up. All the milestones that parents have with their children, I don't get to have that ever. You get to sort of imagine what that would be like, but you never will have it. I think about them every day in some form, whether it's just passing thought or where I really will think about it, like, when people are talking about my 18-year-old son, my son would have been 20 and the twins would have been 19 coming up this year. So, and you think, what would my child have been doing now? Luckily I've gone on to have Phoebe, and then I've, me and my ex-wife, divorced, and I've gone on to have 2 lovely little girls with my partner now. But all during that time where I'm looking after someone and feeling that I've got to have that role as protecting, having to deal with her, blaming herself, all of those things, didn't really have time to grieve and thought it was my place. And it's funny, when you do lose a child, people automatically, they'll see you aware of what's gone on. How's your partner? How's your wife? And you're like, oh, getting there. And not once does anyone say, you all right? Never have that. I found that is only probably 2 or 3 people that I know would say, you okay?
Yeah.
And then you get the platitudes people have where they go, well, everything happens for a reason. And you sort of squint your eyes a bit and go, and I don't think it's that people mean it as a platitude. It's just their way of saying, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
No, people aren't trained counsellors. People probably don't know a lot of people that's happened to. So what do you say? And it's weird because I think, if you do have the unfortunate circumstance of knowing someone that's happened to, really ask if they're okay. Like, just say, what's going on with you? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah.
And I think people do want you to ask. They don't. we lost what people that we thought of our friends, didn't lose them, but it would probably have been just easier to avoid us than confronting it, or not confronting it, but just having to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so if anyone, even if it doesn't have to be a baby, it's just any grieving, just to say, how are you doing? Do you fancy talking about it? A lot of the time, if someone would have said, do you want to talk about it? I'd have gone, I'm fine, I'm okay. But just knowing that's a true friend, you know, like someone who's just going, we sit down for a coffee if you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, had that happen sort of, and that was in my early 20s.
Okay. So I think you're very right in terms of grief. It's not a mental health issue per se, but it is really a massive risk factor in where the places it can take you. And I don't think grief is a real difficult one, isn't it? Because it's not linear. It doesn't start and finish. You can't go, well, it's been 3 months, so I should have grieved this now. It's something that springs back on you time and time again. Like you said, you think every day, and I could see the emotion in your voice. And to be fair, this is what this podcast is about. It's about let's talk and the deep dive, and we've really gone in deep dive. And I can quite happily say that I wasn't expecting that in terms of that depth. That's hit me a bit unexpected, and I can't imagine. the feelings, the emotions, the grief that you had to process whilst trying to be strong for someone else as well, that, like you say, blame themselves.
To this day, still blames herself for that, and I think she carries that. And there's no detachment on my part. Like, I think about them, I honour them, I think of everything they could have been doing with their lives, what I'd have been doing with them. But yeah, I think she does blame herself, and it's a massive anchor that she carries with her. But it's not surprising.
No,
that it doesn't. And it's funny you should say that grief's not linear, because you get given all the pamphlets and all the advice going, the stages of grief, and you don't necessarily go through them all. But sometimes you don't feel any of them, but at some point you will, and they come when you least expect them.
Yeah, having, do you know what? I was very flippant towards grief for a long time. And I think it's because I never experienced it. And then when I lost my dad, because of his age, because of how quickly he deteriorated and died, and cancer was awful and it ate away at him within 5 months, I then had to experience grief. And like you, saw the pamphlets, you should be feeling this stage, and then you'll go through the denial stage, you'll go through this stage.
Yep.
I think I've revisited stages, and I don't think I've still finished. I don't think I'm at the end. I think when I think I'm clear, something else comes back up, and I'm like, it's hit me again like a big wave. Now, I've dealt with that at the age of 45. How does a man deal with it at the age of 20, whilst also in a high-pressured role where you're carrying firearms? And for the people that are listening that didn't catch that, MOD, police, is the Ministry of Defence, so a little bit different to the Home Office forces and to the police we see out on the street every day, but still do a very valuable job for the nation, and one of the only national forces. So how do you cope with that? How do you carry on?
I just don't know what. I think the first day I went back after my son had died, a guy who had been at the training school with me, had, like, you chum up with people, and he was like my bestie, that's hanging around all the time. And he'd, within 3 weeks of being there, really like this girl. 6 weeks of being there, I love her. By the end of the course, they were engaged.
Okay,
great. Have a happy life sort of thing. But it's so, and in that time, so I come back, and he's in tears in the parade room, and I'm like, what's wrong? And he said, I just want to die. I just want to. I can't. But I said, what's wrong? And he went, and his girlfriend is like, we've split up. And I'm thinking, my son's just died, and you want to kill yourself because your missus has basically left you, who you've known for less than 6 months at this point, That's the worst thing that's happened to him in his life. And he just said, I just want to die, or just, I don't want to carry on. It's sort of like, he wanted to, that's how he felt through splitting up with a girlfriend, and that's it. And I think how lucky, and in my mind, I'm thinking, I was trying to rationalise it, because you could get angry and go, well, my kids just died and you want to come crying about that. But that's the worst thing that's happened to him. And I think for a lot of people, the worst thing that's happened to them is the worst thing that's happened to them.
Of course.
And the worst thing that's happened to me, if that happened to them, and I think I wouldn't be too quick to judge anyone now when they say this is the worst time in my life. What's wrong? Oh, me and my... I think someone said to my missus, again, the worst thing that happened to her kid, who was 4, said, I don't love you anymore, and stomps off to her room, and she was devastated. She was crying all day. And I thought, well, if that is the worst thing that's happened to you, well, you're very lucky.
Yeah, and I think life changes us, and we see things through different perspective. And like you say, and I say it all the time, what we feel, no one else can feel, because they are ours. It's the only thing that we actually do own on this planet, and that no one can take away, and it can't be taxed by the government. And what we feel is what we feel. And sometimes people are lucky, I think, because they haven't had to experience some of the stuff that you and I have gone through. And I think that shapes your perspective. And the only thing we can ever change is self. So I always look at it and say, like you, I could get angry and say, well, you haven't had this, this and this. But I look at it and go, actually, I empathise, because we all do have these struggles, don't we?
Yeah.
And I sometimes think, I'm glad you haven't had to go through what I've had to go through. And would I want you to? No. Certainly not. But what I can do is I can fix me and work on my attitude towards it. But difficult, isn't it? Because like you said as well, a lot of people don't ask you how you are.
No.
And we talk about postnatal depression and bits like that. And it's been proven now that fathers can suffer with postnatal depression. But we forget about the dads. Because obviously the females carried the baby, had the baby, and we understand that hormonal change and everything that can happen. But we forget the dads have suddenly realised that they've got to take care of a life, and it can affect them. Likewise, what you had gone through is your own journey there as well, with a lot of pitfalls, a lot of massive risk factors. It blows my mind the risk factors that you must have been coping with on a day-to-day that could have tipped you one way or the other. Yet people avoid asking you because we're scared about saying the wrong thing.
Like I said, I think what you're saying there about how it changes you, I think when you've had something that bad happen to you, I think it actually makes you more empathetic towards people, because you've just got a different understanding of loss and how you feel about that. And then when people are telling you their problems, even if they pale in significance, it's someone whose girlfriend has left them. Like I said, in that moment, I could have got very angry, very dismissive. But like I said, that was the worst thing that ever happened to him. So for me, I just turn around and say, oh, mate, I'm really sorry. And, but at the same time, it's not expecting something back from that empathy as well. So you should be actually saying that genuinely.
Yeah.
So, and I think, again, if you are going to approach someone who, whatever they're going through, you shouldn't be expecting a pat on the back for asking. You shouldn't expect anything back other than genuine concern to how that person is, and listen. Because I had, like I said, I think my first haircut after that happening, and my barber turned around and he said, oh, how's... And I sort of said, oh, well, he died then about a week ago. And he went, oh, mate, I'm really sorry. He said, well, everything happens for a reason. And I sort of had to, okay, that's your contribution. And again, could have got really angry and gone, do you want to list that reason off then? What reason do you think that's,
Yeah.
But again, I think it's just, he's got someone sat in his barber's chair saying his kid's just died in hospital. What are you going to say?
It's almost flight or flight, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's freeze time, because how do we do it? And as a society, and I go around and talk my story, and I talk about people avoiding me after my suicide attempt because they're so worried that they're going to say something and Dan's going to go and try and kill himself again, that they would rather say nothing. Yeah. And that's not helpful either. How do we change that?
I think, I really think men's mental health, because we've always, as men, women are great at it. They'll rally around other women.
Yeah.
Men aren't great at rallying around other men.
No.
Men are great at, being this saviour, and but if it's another bloke,
Yeah.
he'll be all right.
Yeah.
He'll pull himself together.
So that ego comes through, doesn't it? We're supposed to be men's men, and
men's men, and
we're the breadwinners, because that's generationally we've got to be strong, to be strong, and we can't show that weakness.
Head of the house, all of those things, and that, I think I'd say in the last at least 5 to 10 years, there's been a real push towards men being what men should be in a brotherhood, and being there for other men.
Yeah.
And don't even have to be men you particularly know that well. It doesn't have to be your best mate. Doesn't have to be an immediate family member. I think just having that empathy to think if someone is struggling, just to say, do you want to chat about it?
Yeah.
And like I said, I think had those things not happened to me, maybe I wouldn't be as empathetic as I could be.
Yeah.
But I really think sometimes, and there's not a pat on the back thing, but like when people are clearly struggling, men or women, I do take it upon myself to almost take on a little bit of that. And not in just to say, look, can I help? Can I do something? And definitely now with how I've obviously got a career in the police, but we'll go on and talk about that in a minute. But a branch that I've gone on to, I'm definitely in a position to help people more. And it's actually something that is a bit of it's that North Star for me now.
Okay.
There's something now, my police career's been great and I've met some great people. I don't see it as my future. It's not something I want to get old, have the ceremonial handshake and thanks very much.
Watch and see you later.
Yeah, at 65 or whatever.
Yeah.
Later than that now.
Yeah,
but thank you. But that's not my North Star anymore.
Okay, so I'm going to say something here, that the people who have said everything happens for a reason, see, that's something that I've said before, and I believe in the universe, and I believe that the positive thinking, the manifestation, and how we can change our lives by the positive attitude that we have. Now, I have used that sentence, that everything happens for a reason. I don't believe in coincidence. Now, would I use it in the barber situation that you had? No, that's not the right time. But I think that comes from a place of good intention without any education around how people feel, and someone who hasn't experienced something like that.
Yeah.
Now, from what you said just now, there is something that I see where everything happens for a reason, because what this has done for you has shaped you. And you now saying, do you know what? It's given me this ability to be able to see people, to be able to be empathetic towards people and want to help people. Much like me, you probably joined the police for a reason, which was to make a difference.
Yeah, I think that at school, I was not good at school.
Okay.
I wasn't thick by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
School bored me to tears.
Okay.
I still can't understand in maths how you can replace numbers with letters. Still can't get my head around sin, cos, or all of that. Cosine nonsense.
You've lost me.
Nonsense.
Yep.
No doubt extremely useful to some people, not for me. I don't understand it. Weirdly, I'm more interested in science, art, literature, anything now in my 40s than I ever would have been at 14.
Okay.
And the careers advice, I had my brother-in-law at the time was a Royal Marine Commando, then went on to be in the SBS, and I wanted to be a Royal Marine.
Okay.
So went to the careers fair, Royal Marine stands there, and I said, I want to be a Royal Marine officer. And the weird thing he said was, what papers do you read? I'm 14. Daily Mirror? And he went, yeah, you need to start reading The Guardian, you need to start reading The Independent, you need to, these big broadsheet things. And I went, oh, okay. He said, what GCSE grades are you looking at? I said, well, I don't know. And he went, well, you need to get really good ones. He said, or, don't bother, really. He said, but you could go in as a normal Marine. So, okay, so that sort of killed that. I'm not going to be reading The Guardian or whatever. And, or just any big paper for that matter, I might add. But it was, and then I sort of ended up with my ex-wife, and it was only that I sort of fell into the police, but it's something I was actually interested in. But yeah, it's not something like some people know they want to be a police officer at a young age.
Yeah.
It was something I sort of fell into, but everyone said you'd make a great copper just because I'm tall and big. So like you're tall, you should play basketball. Well, you'd make a great copper.
Yeah.
However, I did have quite a good temperament. And I was just really interested in it, and I just so happened to stumble across the MOD police. I had some job where I was driving a truck, drove into an American Army base over in Southampton Water, and the guy had a gun on his hip, but a police jumper on. I said, "Oh, I didn't realise you lot carried guns." And he said, "Oh, we're not the normal police, we're the MOD police."
Okay.
And it's sort of like, "Do you want to join?" It's like, all right, and filled in an application form with some old sergeant, and then a year later I was in. But like I said, there are some really good police officers out there. The way policing's going currently, I don't think someone like me fits that mould necessarily.
Okay.
Now, like I said, I do my job to the best of my ability, and however, I do feel like there's a churn to get people in for maybe like a set period of time, and then you go find your career after that. I can't see the future of policing being full of 67-year-olds.
No, and I think organisationally it is changing. I still think it's a calling rather than a job. I think there has to be that, like you said, I at 5 years old, I knew I wanted to join the police. Yeah. It was my dream job. Glad I've done it. The same as you, I can see the organisational shift. Do I fit into that now? No. And much like you, I still want to help people because of my experiences. I think you're right. You get this level of empathy that it's like a spidey sense. Yeah. For those that love Spider-Man and Marvel and the comics, as I do, it's a superpower that comes when you've struggled. You get this level of empathy to be able to see into people, I think. And obviously you can't know exactly what they're feeling. It's just a sense. And if they're ready to talk, maybe. But I think you can give better support because you've been through it, is probably what I'm trying to say. So obviously it shaped you. Yeah.
In terms of the mental health stuff, with what's happened to me previously. Yeah, I think, like I said, I think I was very... I had grandparents die, like my nana died when I was very young, watching my mum grieve, but not understanding it. I was about 6 or 7 when that happened. You've got no idea.
No, and I smile there, right? And I smile because when my dad passed, I'd lost grandparents, but I think you expect it. Yes, it's sad, and yes, it's unfortunately it is the circle of life. But you sort of go, well, they're older, they've been through life and whatever, and all the stuff that you can rationalise it with. Not that it helps at the immediate time because you're still sad and upset, but it's not the same level of grief.
No, nowhere near.
Losing a parent was tough because you expect them to always be there. I don't think you ever expect a time where you're not going to have your parent. And again, it should be because it's rational that they're going to be gone. But to have the experience that you had, I am going to say it's unique. And I know it's not unique, but for you to go through that, probably still a boy, really, in your 20s.
Yeah. Like, I hadn't fully grown up yet. I mean, I'm nearly there.
Yeah, I was going to say, men, we're still Peter Pan. When do we finish? But...
I had a lot of growing up very quickly. Yeah. Like, that happening how old was I then? 23, 24? Not old at all.
No.
And like I said, I still look at 25-year-olds today as being young men, very young men, boys.
Yeah.
It's that thing when you get older, you say, young man. But I was a young man. I was young, but I hadn't really experienced a lot.
We think we have. I became a father at 23 and I thought I knew the world, but we don't, do we? And to have to go through that 23 years old, in terms of your resilience, do you feel that coming out the other side of that you're now stronger as a person?
Like I said, there was. It definitely put a more serious slant on my life because, like I said, I'm at the training school. It's a laugh. You're with people, it's still a laugh. Everything's a laugh. And then just my girlfriend, at the ex-wife at the time, falling pregnant, that suddenly makes you grow up real quick. Like, I've got an adult now.
Yeah.
I can't drive my two-door BMW I've got. Now I've got to get a family car. I've got to get a mortgage. I was obsessed. I've got to have a house. Have a house. Can't just have the flat.
Yeah.
I've got to have a house.
So putting pressure on yourself anyway before anything's happened, very much the same as you had a BMW 318 IS Coupe, 2 doors, and same age as you, 23. My now ex-wife also fell pregnant, and she was like, "Well, that's going." And that for me at 23, I'm thinking, time to grow up.
Yeah, I think there's different points. I think a lot of adults men can sink and swim with that. I think there's definitely, a woman is carrying a baby. There's that responsibility. She feels that she's got to make a nest. But I think with men, you're either going to think your life's going to stay the same, which it 100% won't, or you sort of knuckle down and think, actually, I've got a massive responsibility coming up here, and that I felt that. So I think that, women, they always say women mature a lot quicker than men.
It's true. Yeah, it's definitely true.
Yeah, and they know what they want, whereas I think men, even when they say, I'll be a good dad, there's still things today I do where I think I've got to be a better dad. Like when your kids, for example, when you're on your laptop and you're doing stuff, and like you're a very busy man. Well, I decided to complicate my life, and I've got 3 businesses I run that runs concurrent with my full-time work. And when your kids turn around and go, "You're always doing work," and you think that maybe can wait. Because you don't. I know it's going off on another tangent now, but that time you've got with your children at a certain age where they're interested in you and they want you to play, and they want you to look at everything and watch me. I'm doing this like a half cut cartwheel. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, but then if you go away from that, they know. Yeah. So when I sort of stop and go, "So what are you doing?" They're like, "No, put your laptop down," and like that. So there's all these stages of growing up and what you prioritise. Then I think, like I said, for me, I did go hard. Like I've got an adult now. I've got to get the house. I've got to get the dadmobile. And then to get hit with that was, like I said, I felt there was a period of time. I don't think I went through any of those stages of grief. I just felt numb. I felt very numb to it, and like, my kid's dead. My kid, I'm not going to have any more time with him. There's no time with him. I had a very limited time with him. I mean, I used to pop in and see him. He was in an incubator the whole time. And I remember I had a chance to hold him, and because he weighed just over a pound, tiny, and he would have fit in the space of my forearm here, like the whole of him. Yeah. And it was too delicate. I couldn't. I was like, no. I want my partner, like, no, put him on her chest. And they're like, "Do you want to hold him?" I'm like, no. I couldn't, because I felt he was too delicate, and I didn't want to hurt him. And I'll never get that. I'll never get to hold him again, feel him alive on me. So, there's process things like that. Like, imagine telling any dad when your child's a baby, you'll never get to hold them. Yeah. So there's things like that, and I have to rationalise that to myself, that I didn't get a chance to do that, but I can't what if. I think sometimes with grieving, what if I'd have spent more time? The time you had was the time you had. And sometimes just saying advice for anyone, even if it's a parent, your kids, just prioritise that time, because you won't get it again. No. And that's, it's another part, like with my teenage daughter, They get she's in a space now where she doesn't mind spending time with me. I'm not that bad. I'll take her out.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's not. I don't take her to the park. I take her to Starbucks.
No. It does do a little full circle.
Yeah, it does.
In terms of they go through that bit of time where, Dad, you're not really cool to hang around with anymore. But it comes back, and I can sort of empathise and relate a little bit to it. If anyone had ever said to me, "Yeah, you're never going to be able to hold your children," that would be devastating to me.
Yeah.
But I find myself wishing every so often that I could have one more conversation with my dad.
Yep.
And we had a very strange relationship. And he has been the main antagonist in my mental health story. But would I still give it all for one last conversation? Yeah, without a doubt. And I think those things where you realise how precious time is, and sometimes you need that awakening to realise how precious time is, and we waste so much of it as humans. Yeah. My views on time is it isn't real. Time is not real. It's something that we've made up. But we put an awareness to an experience, and that is what time is. So I tell a story about when my dad got ill, I rescued a dog at the same time. And I had that dog, the dog I've still got now, she's my little rock. But 5 months, I can't remember a day I didn't have her. Yet that 5 months that my dad was dying went in the blink of an eye. And for me, that just sums up what time is. And it's not real. And I can imagine how it must have been going to the hospital, that time might have just stood still. But then when it's gone, it feels like it's a blink, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that to me, that happened half my lifetime ago, near enough.
Yeah.
And, it's really weird. Like, I can recount stories from primary school, from when I was like 5, 6, upwards. I think I've just got to that age where secondary school and college does feel like a long time ago.
Yeah.
But just starting my career in the police at 23, like, that doesn't actually feel like that long ago, but it really is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, we put numbers to it, like, but 2010, 2000, they don't feel like that long ago.
No. No.
And I think with grieving, I compartmentalised it for a long time.
Okay.
And I guess for me, it was just because I had a role to help and protect someone from the world, also from themselves. I don't want to talk for her because it's not fair.
No.
I'm sure if she was here, she'd probably be more open about it. But let's just say if you would have pulled me over and seen the leather Lonsdale sports bag in the back of my car, you'd have thought I was a serial killer. It was all the drugs in my house and anything sharp.
Okay.
I had to take that to work, or at the gym, out the house every day.
Yeah.
It couldn't, that was not an option to leave those things there. So that probably says enough about that. But on a daily basis for years.
Okay. Which is another risk factor there you're facing, not only dealing and processing yourself and dealing with grief, which is the risk factor, caring for somebody else that's going through some real tough mental health issues is another risk factor for you in terms of it. So tell me, Jarrod, when did you actually grieve, number one? And secondly, what did you do in terms of getting yourself through those dark times?
Do I know what? It probably, like a really dark, like, entrepreneurial story, it wasn't there. I worked. I did all the overtime I could. And this by product of my ex-wife suffering hugely of her mental health, she couldn't work.
Yeah.
Like, she had a pretty good job as a manager of a care home. Had to stop that because she'd struggle to pull herself out of bed in the morning and just look after herself, let alone go and look after other people. And that was something she loved. That wasn't a job she hated. She didn't hate. She loved she used to work with adults with learning difficulties. She used to love that. She loved all the characters that couldn't do it. So I'm on a starting wage in the police. I've got a mortgage. I've got a car that I need to run. I've got, food to put on the table. So now, not making enough money, I started a gardening company.
Okay.
I got asked to mow some lawns for some people, and this all in the police. Worked at Domino's Pizza as a delivery driver and knocking on doors of people that you know. I thought you were in the police. Yeah, I'm kind of having to do this as well, so there's a bit of shame there for me. But I'm just throwing myself into, I'm having to earn money. And then 2011, I got the bright idea of having another MMA fight. I used to do MMA because that's our connection with our friend Tom.
Yeah, that's how we met.
Yeah.
So, we met through a couple of people who do UFC and MMA. And for those that are just listening to this, I use my policing skills here. And Jarrod is 6'2", 6'3".
Oh, 6'1".
So
you're being very generous.
I'm only short of 5'10", so everyone looks like a giant to me. But he's a big guy, and you can tell that you're built for that sport, and those that are watching will see, Jarrod is definitely built for that sort of sport, and I can tell you quite honestly that I would not be getting in the ring with him. But the bit I want to go back on into there before we go into the MMA stuff, because I'm sure that would have been a great release, because I always find sport, any type of sport, great release, certainly, and that one seems even more because of the aggression you can get out. But we talk about coping strategies, and we make it really complicated. I always say this with coping strategies. It is just something that you find fun is a good coping strategy. But a bad coping strategy, whenever we talk about coping mechanisms, and there's two things I want to sort of go off on the tangent here, but when we talk generationally, how men never talked, what they would do is they'd go to the pub and they'd sink 8-10 pints and say, well, I've been talking to my mates, but you haven't actually talked about anything relevant or anything that's going through your head. You're just getting drunk and using that to mask, which is a really dangerous coping strategy.
Yeah.
But also, excessive workload is what we would always say now. Throwing yourself into work is a common outcome after struggling with something, because it's what you know, and you can either hide or do very well still. You can still function. But in terms of coping strategies, it never gives you that chance to reflect. And was it a case of, obviously you had to pay the bills, which was a pressure and another risk factor. But was it also that you felt safer being away from the house? And also, it was just something else to take your mind away? Did you use it for that? Am I wrong?
No. I've got, anyone... I've even got the nickname. I kind of don't like it, but it's fun. The Magpie.
Right, okay.
My brain doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So, and it probably explains the different branches my life's taken. But I really think before that time, I was pretty much go to the gym, go out in my car, hang around my mates.
Yeah. 23-year-old life.
Yeah, that's it. So, and before that, again, probably more ego. I used to do martial arts from when I was 5.
Yeah.
So, and then, when was it? Must have been, I just left college, so I'm only 18.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my friends I'd been to HMV, and this is when VHS was still a thing.
Yeah.
UFC 6 on VHS. And I thought it was like, I was like, I'll get this. I thought, because you'd see these videos, but it'd be some form of wrestling or boxing video. But this was like people, and the early UFC, anyone will tell you, is like the Wild West. It'd be like some karate instructor from a strip mall in America fighting a seasoned wrestler and being put on and just getting his head smashed in.
Okay.
And I thought, being young and stupid and full of ego, I can do that. And and this is the story of where I got my BMW. I went from, again, the ego in me. I was like, right, I'm going to save money and I'm going to go to Brazil and I'm going to train with a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy in Brazil. And then for 6 months, I'm going to go and train with a guy called Marco Huas, who I used to watch. And he had a fighter called Pedro Hizzo, who was a bit more current at the time I was watching UFC. And I'm going to go and train with them and I'm going to be an MMA fighter. And then someone said, oh no, there's actually a guy in Fareham who does it. You don't have to do all of that. That's another story, probably for another time. But essentially, I ended up training and fighting under this guy who laughably now is well known as a dodgy dealer and, you know, would throw you under the bus for £100 kickback off a promoter. And I ended up in a sport should been nowhere near at the time. Didn't have the training, the pedigree, the background that is probably required of it. So I had like a few fights in the early 2000s. I think I lost 2, won 2. And then that sort of faded away because one of them I got badly beaten up by some Georgian world Greco-Roman wrestling champion, state judo champion, really. And he went on to be a champion in this country of an organisation, and sort of made me think, shouldn't really be in it because there's some scary people, shouldn't be. And that sort of checked my own ego there, thinking I'm out of my depth here. I shouldn't be fighting in this. So I took a step away, pretended I had an injury, sort of disappeared from that. And then, and then I saw our friend Tom. He's doing really well. He's starting a fight. He's not in UFC at this point, but he's fighting all around the world, doing really well.
And that's, so for listeners, that's Tom Kong Watson, former UFC fighter.
Yep.
Lives local to us, again, part of the story behind how I met you. So you've met Tom.
Yeah, I used to go to college with Tom in Eastleigh.
Yep.
But he wasn't, I think he was doing a bit of boxing at that point. But yeah, it was just one of them things where like just everyone's like, oh, have you seen what Tom's up to? No. Well, he's fighting all around the world. And then you just see him up and up and up. And then most people will probably know him as the person who beat up Jordan's boyfriend at the time, Alex Reed.
Okay.
And then he just kept his star, kept rising. And it sort of inspired me because I wanted to get back into it at that point. I thought I started going to a Thai boxing gym. Then I was grappling with some guys there. And I thought, you know what? I fancy giving it another go. I'll take it serious this time. I actually trained. MMA is starting not really to take shape. There's a few there's always been large MMA gyms, always been up London sort of way, or but there was nothing really down here at the time. There's a few clubs springing up, but they're doing it the proper way. They're actually doing the strength and conditioning. They're getting the Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's not some karate instructor. There are people that at the time were just, well, I used to do a bit of judo, so they'd add a bit of, you know.
It seems to be more and more popular now, but where we are in Portsmouth, on the south coast, we seem to get things a little bit after. We're a little bit forgotten about down here. We're a bit isolated sometimes.
I mean, you've got there's quite a prominent gym down here. They actually opened up roughly the same time I did Gym 01.
Yeah,
the guys there.
They're still going.
No, that's still going. They own a big show called Shock and Awe down here, which is that's got a good name for itself.
So you going back into the MMA, the fighting world?
Yeah.
What was the reasoning? At the time, the reasoning I'm getting was
that the magpie.
Yeah,
it's me. You know, I'm throwing myself. I'm doing gardening.
Yeah,
I'm delivering pizzas. Martial arts has a great way of taking your brain out your head, putting it in a jar on the side, and then leaving this primal brain just to deal with what's in front of you, whether that's some Latvian wrestler grappling with you. I used to grapple with every Thursday, and we used to go at it for an hour and a half, and you'd come off, you know, you could slip off the mat. You were just caked in sweat, or getting beaten up by the Thai boxers, whatever it was. Martial arts has a great way of taking you out of your head and being present in the moment. So that was a good escape for me, because I could go every Thursday, go and grapple, and for an hour and a half, I've not got to think about anything. You're not checking your phone every 2 seconds like everyone does now. I'm guilty of it.
I think
my phone's glued to my hand, and probably for a different reason. It's not. I'm not a TikTok scroll or anything like that. Maybe an Instagram one, but it's you know, it just has that way of just pulling you out of yourself and allowing you to be present. So it was a great distraction for me. I had a guy when I come up for my last fight, which was in 2011, getting up at 4 a.m. to go running and then have him do hideous workouts with me. I'm sure he got a kick out of that. A guy called Gareth used to train me, you know, doing burpees and sit-ups and press-ups at, you know, freezing cold, like crazy times in the morning, going hill sprinting, and all the rest of it. So you want to throw all before you want to go to work, and that was clearly a distraction. And again, probably ego. A lot of, you know, all men have got something to prove, and you know that thing you said, you know, I'm built for that sport, and you know, and you could probably, like, there are some people, if you train hard at it, you definitely, but probably I have not got that thing that Tom's probably got, where it's like the Ivan Drago, well, you know, if he dies, he dies. Like he's willing to go in there. He was willing to go in there. He's at the time, I've no doubt he was willing to go in there and put everything on the line for it. I don't think I've got that.
No,
not in that sense. Like, you know, if I thought of, I don't know, that trained assassin,
I think
sort of mindset.
Yeah, you're definitely right, and obviously, what you're describing is almost, it is a good coping strategy. I'm not going to lie, because that being in the present, living for now, is the most important thing. And yeah, I'm the same with sports, football, the gym, stuff like that, where I can just go in. It's me against the bar, or I'm playing football. I get a bit more aggression out. But it's the game. I'm not thinking about anything else during that game. I'm thinking about where I am, who's on the pitch with me, what we're doing, and all those things. It is a good coping strategy. I do think, and I've said it a few times, and I've even talked about it in terms of a business sense, because much like you, I'm entrepreneurial, and I've got this brain that doesn't switch off, and I always have these ideas, and I get a little bit fixated on ideas, and part of my mental health is that I sometimes can't get over stage 1 until I've done it, and then I can move to stage 2 even though I can see it.
Yeah.
And I get caught on those. But I think it is, in terms of what we're saying, I was missing something. I could never be the next Mark Zuckerberg. I couldn't be that person. I've got something that's not there that drives you to be that elite 1%.
I do think a lot of these, when you think of all of these top, the people that obviously are brand names like Jobs and stuff, like, I think there's an element of there. I don't feel some of these people could be connected to their emotions, because there's a lot of ladder, you know, treading on fingers. Like Zuckerberg didn't get there being nice.
No, and I don't.
I mean, he's well known, as documented in a film, that he stole an idea of two guys. They just asked him to build it out. He sort of ran with it and said, "Well, I've done this now."
And I think, yeah, you're right. I think they connect to emotions differently. Certainly, and we've already said in this chat, we connect to our emotions differently because of what we've been through. So everybody goes through stages of life. But I think, yes, you have to have that something within you to push you into that 1% elite. And I know for a fact I haven't got it. And if I will get to where I want to be, because I've got that drive and ambition. But have I got that little percentage in me to get to that elite level? Probably not. It's probably just missing.
Well, there's a well-known story of Arnold Schwarzenegger where his mum phoned him and said, "Your father's died. You need to come home." And he said, "He's dead. What can I do? I'm here, and I've got to do this." And it was probably for Mr. Olympia, but like
still that 1%, isn't it?
But there's not many people that would do that. They're oh God, I've got to get home.
Yeah.
I've got to do everything I can. And he's that focused to do that. He's willing to forego whatever his mum thinks of him, whatever like people think of him. Well, the fact we're talking about it says that there's something abnormal about that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but for most people, they'd go, "That's awful."
And
what an awful person. But that's why he is where he is and what he's done.
And I always say that, you know, the reason my book is called "What Is Normal Anyway" is because for him, that was normal.
Yeah.
To you and I, no. I can even say that I knew my dad was dying, and during that last month before he died, in my head, I'm still thinking he's going to last 5 years. I think deep down somewhere I knew he wasn't. But I was in denial even then, because the grief stage, it was there, because I knew he was dying. He'd been given a terminal diagnosis. But I turned down work because I'm freelance or I'm self-employed. I was turning down work so I could be close to home.
Yeah.
Anything that I thought, oh, this is going to take me too far away, I was like, no, I can't do this. So, yeah, to the Arnie story, I think that really does sum up what we're saying about that. You've got to have that in you, haven't you?
Yeah, and like I said, I don't even know how to describe it with someone like Tom or anyone who's in the top echelon of a sport. The dedication, I mean, so like the stories you would hear about him, first in the gym, last to leave. I remember I opened a gym 2012, and remember I had my fight in 2011, and the idea was I was going to carry on fighting, but I need to create a gym. And the reason I had that fight is because, well, I can't say, well, I had fights 10 years ago. I've got to be current. And if I've got my own gym, I can pull people in. So I ended up opening the biggest MMA gym Southampton ever seen. It's this big place with a cage and a ring and a huge mat. And that was a base for me to train out of. I think I could count on two hands probably the amount of times I trained. So, because running a business is hard.
Yeah.
And running it on a shoestring budget without huge backing is even harder. So I'm working behind the desk making cups of teas for mum and dads that come to see their kids boxing. I'm jumping in, covering a kids class. I'm cleaning the toilets.
Yeah.
I'm cleaning puke off the floor of all the people that turn up for MMA beginners sessions, telling you that how good a fighter they are, and they can't even make out of a warm up without throwing up. So you're doing all these.
I think we sort of, when we hear people say, I've got my own business or I've got my own company, and you expect, they have this vision of you driving around in posh cars, big houses.
Alan Sugar.
Yeah. And the reality is that, I grew up, my mum and stepdad had a pub. They were both a la carte chefs. And, I, as a child, thought and we talked about this earlier, I thought I didn't get to see them much. They didn't come and watch me play football, and I played at a good level. I ran at a good level.
A publican is that's an 18-hour-a-day job.
And do you know what, though? As a child, I was really selfish, and I was like your kids were saying to you, just put the laptop down, or Dad's always on his laptop. They never used to turn up. And I think that's maybe where my little lack of drive came from, or whatever. I expected them to be there as a kid. As an adult, I look back now and go, they gave me a lifestyle that was pleasant, I didn't want for anything as a kid. My story is not as bad as some people that I've seen through my policing career, but as a kid I couldn't understand it. But like you say, people say to me, oh, you grew up in a pub, that must be really good. And all my mates used to say, oh, it must be brilliant growing up in a pub. No, in reality it's not, because they're working, 17, 18 hours a day. When they're not open, the cleaning's going on, the pipes are being cleaned, all the stuff that's going on. They had one day off a week, which was always the quietest day, so they had to have a Tuesday. That was their quiet day, so they'd go off and do something on a Tuesday. But I look back at it and think, as a selfish kid, I was thinking, no, they don't spend enough time with me. But as you get older, you realise running a business is hard.
Yeah.
And to be successful is even harder.
I mean, they say about this thing like 1 in 3 businesses don't make it. It's not that. I think the statistics are actually massively skewed to the businesses that actually excel and flourish and people do well out of it. Anyone can start a business. Yeah. It's quite easy to start a business.
Yeah.
I think some people get, there's a very absolutely misplaced thing that people go, oh, you've got your own business. You must have a bit of money. Like, yeah, you reckon?
Yeah. Do you want to see my bank account?
Yeah. Do you want to see how much time I have to pour into it? The lack of sleep, the stress that goes with it.
So I'm going to bring you fast forward now, and I'm going to bring you to what you're doing now, because I am interested, intrigued, wanting to learn. And this is part of my podcast, is I'm bringing on guests that I can learn from here, because you do some stuff that I would like to learn in terms of content for my community that I'm building, because it's really helpful in terms of mental health positivity. So things like breath work, I know you're very, very into.
Yeah, I'm just about to. I've literally, I'm like days away from being Oxygen Advantage Master Instructor.
Okay, explain. Explain what that is.
Okay, so the easiest way to say it, when you say breath work, people go, "Oh, Wim Hof." That's a style of breath work. That's a style of breathing.
Okay.
So if Wim Hof is preparing your body for stress, they use cold a lot. As what he's known for is the Iceman.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the most popular one breathing technique you'll see. So it's the sort of, holding your breath in and doing this circular breathing and preparing your body for stressing your body, getting it stress tolerant. The Oxygen Advantage, it's de-stressing your body. So, for example, I've absolutely, and it's something else I've trained. I'm a certified sleep coach.
Okay.
Sleep and recovery coach. Something that's absolutely changed everything for me, is at night pushing my nose up like a pig and then putting a nasal dilator over top. So think Alex Hormozy, one of those strip C rugby players wear, and taping my mouth shut. Sleeping on my side and getting nice quality breathing using the nose, so you can become 20% more effective. Sport, just day to day, 20% more efficient in your breathing using your nose. Your mouth is used to taste and eat food. You can breathe through your mouth. Yeah, it's not what it's designed for.
No, I do breathe through my mouth.
Sorry, I was saying that right. So with your nose, you smell things, and it's for breathing. Yeah, that's its core function. Yeah. The mouth does all sorts of different things, but it's not actually primarily used for breathing. No. So it's all about using the nose to breathe, breathing low and slow, and just calming the body down, using it for there's all sorts of different methods teaching the Oxygen Advantage. So from high altitude training, breath holds, it's about becoming more CO2 tolerant. A lot of people, about oxygenating the body, it's about tolerating CO2. Low and slow breathing. Okay. That's what the breath work side of it is. Okay. That
does intrigue me, because we talk about sleep being so important, and of course it is, because it's when our body processes, it's when our body grows and repairs, and it is key, because not enough sleep is a massive risk factor towards mental health issues, and we know that, it's been proven. And our bodies need sleep. We're not AI yet. Really? I did read something the other day about you can now get AI brides and marry AI, and we're heading down a dodgy path. But sleep is really important, and I use my mouth to breathe, to the point where you told me your nickname earlier. So police training school, I was Darth Vader, because my breathing is so bad. They used to check when we were watching like any videos or anything like that. They'd say, "You awake, Dan? We thought you were asleep because your breathing had gone so deep and heavy." Yeah, my nose probably isn't the best, and I probably do need to do a lot more work on that and improve my sleep. So working with someone like you would be able to assist that.
Yeah. So like, here's something you can do just as a decongestion. So what you can ask people to do is just breathe low and slow out the nose. Keep the mouth shut. There's no need to keep the mouth open at all. So it's breathing low, just really slow. So just having that, getting into a rhythm. And then on the exhale, so probably for about 15 seconds, when you breathe out the nose, just pinching it shut, okay? And just calming down and just holding that for about 10 seconds. But no big inhale, just a breathing in. What you do when you pinch the nose, you get nitric oxide will pull in the nasal cavity. When you then inhale through the nose, it opens up your airways. Okay. So nitric oxide will open up the airways. So what we're doing then is we're teaching people to do that, to breathe more efficiently in the nose. So that's a way of decongesting the nose. So that's like a really good exercise to do before sleep. Yeah. So and
that's what I was going to ask, is that where it fits in? Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting to know that, for personally for me, because I will start doing that as part of my routine. Yeah. I mean, we could go into loads of different things, but for me, that's a great one. Is just keep your mouth shut and just
really low and slow, really slow everything down. And because of that, like, you see a lot of people, like, for instance, when they're stressed, where when people are using the mouth to breathe and they pull up in the chest. Whereas with nasal breathing, we're pulling our belly out and we're using the diaphragm. So most of the blood oxygen exchange is going to be down to the diaphragm. It's not going to be at the top.
Okay.
So that's why people hyperventilate. So they pull that breath in at the top and they're taking big breaths, gulps in, but it's not efficiently breathing. Whereas all the time, like when I've got like a boot camp I run.
Okay.
And I tell people all the time, like there's a big guy there, I'll pick on him, Leo. And I always just say to him, close your mouth, calm yourself, calm your breathing down. And then very quickly you see him, he really calms down. You're like, right, keep going with that. Don't open the mouth. He's like, okay.
It's a scary concept though, isn't it? Because it's like when you get out of breath and you for some reason, our body tells us to bend over and put our hands on our knees.
Yeah.
And we're literally closing down.
You're pushing down on that diaphragm.
Yeah.
If you're carrying a little bit of weight, like I'm not the slimmest person in the world, but you've got a lot of visceral fat around the organs. You're just crushing the diaphragm.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is just put the shoulders back, calm down, and just breathe through your nose. Collect yourself. Be very present in keeping that breath low. And, we don't, if you take those big gulps of breath in and you do it at the top, that's not where the primary oxygen exchange is. It's down by the diaphragm. It's where most of the blood oxygen exchange takes place, in the lower part of the lungs.
And this for me is the stuff we've talked about earlier was very deep and, and I can resonate with parts of your story and I empathise massively with other parts of it. And I think the people who are listening to this and watching this will feel the same way. But what it also shows me is that these other bits that we're talking about now is the education you've gone off and given yourself to be able to help yourself and other people, because we end up trying to fix ourselves and learning new skills to help others as we go.
Yeah. And it's, for me, like going back to that gym that I owned, full time in the police, so 2 earlies, 2 nights, 12-hour shifts, hour drive to Reading, where I work. So you're talking a 14, bit of traffic there, 14, 15-hour day.
Yeah.
In between that, I would then take over from whoever is in my gym and I'd work there, and then I'd clean the place at 10:30 at night, finish at about 11. You've got to remember, this was an 8,000 square foot gym.
Yeah.
Huge place. And I would clean that top to bottom, because that was my big thing, that this place has to smell. Like a good gym, especially an MMA gym, should smell of bleach. Like, well, it should have that pine fresh toilet smell. That
bit cleanliness.
It should be disinfected. It has to, because you get nasty stuff. But I would then go to sleep in an office chair, like it's recliner. It was my granddad's old chair. I was to recline in it, and you'd wake up because you're in, it wasn't so nice part of Southampton, but you'd be aware of all the noises. You get woken up, and then I'd be up at 4:30. I'd use the showers there, get ready, go to work. And I used to have PTs that would come in. They had a key. They'd like sort of be at the gym. My ex-wife worked there at the very beginning, and we'd split up. It was a very amicable split up. Both were grown up enough to decide, because of everything that happened, that we were very changed with very different people. But anyway, that's but I would then come off night shifts, say to whoever, so I'd get in about 7:30. Now the gym's opening at 9. I'd get woken up because people were kicking bags, people were like dropping weights. Like the weights area there was a plasterboard wall between my office and that, so I'd be up and I'd come out, piss holes in the snow eyes, but it was, I'd brag, what? I've just had an hour's sleep, and then I'd be up all day and I'd have like half an hour nap. I'd doze off in a chair, then I'd go and do a night shift. And I'd repeat that all the easiest shifts to do were night shifts where we worked. So I would have, over a week, I'd probably have a couple of days where I'd had like 5 hours. So 10 hours over 2 days. Between the night shifts, I'd be lucky if I had 2 hours a day.
And again, we're talking about that unhealthy lifestyle.
I'd brag about it.
Yeah.
People would go, how do you do it? And I'd go, well, if you can't handle it, and people, I couldn't do what you do. Inside my body, and again, maybe it's a distraction because I had to keep myself busy, but I was so proud that I had this lack of sleep, and and it's
all the things that now scream
ridiculous,
at me. If someone's talking to me like that, and then it'd be screaming red flag to me that these are unhealthy coping strategies,
even
and
in
you're
your 30s,
avoiding.
You're like you're priming yourself for a heart attack.
Yeah,
You put like stress, like you need your brain needs that. I mean, I remember the longest time, and again, I used to say this like I was proud of it. I mean, like it's a funny story now, but at the time it was a bragging story, and if someone was telling me this story, I'd be like, "You're insane." I remember I was up for 3 days solid, to the point where I thought I could hit people, and I'd be like, "What's that?" And you'd go, "What?" And I'd go, "You say something." I'd imagine you'd start a conversation.
you're almost entering psychosis levels. Yeah.
Crazy.
From lack of sleep.
Yeah,
and people don't realise that.
Like an idiot.
Yeah.
But like, it's just like, I'd be like, "Oh God, I need to go and have half an hour in a chair." No, I needed 6 hours.
Yeah, or a week in the Bahamas.
Yeah,
but people don't realise that psychosis can be induced by lack of sleep.
Yeah,
When we're talking mental health stuff, the implication, sleep is one of the primary things that we need.
I think NASA did studies where they kept these people awake, like how long can you stay awake for? And I think that, I can't remember what the parameters of this. Well known, you could Google it very easily. Those people had permanent mental health problems. I mean, when I'd say mental health, not they're feeling a bit sad, permanent mental health issues.
Yeah, psychosis is one that they would have drifted into. There's loads of rumours that the US military experimented with sleep to create the super soldier, and really they're inducing psychosis. But that brings us nicely into, I know, the project in your magpie state, the project that you're in now. So let's move on to that. Tell me what you're doing.
So to skip over it, I sold my gym in 2016, then opened up a place with Tom. It's a personal training unit. Big trip into Southampton. Tom lives outside Southampton a fair bit. It was too much. And then I said, I'll take over that unit.
Yeah.
And the two guys at the time, Will and Tom, were like, what are you going to do? I said, I want to play this close to my chest. Joe Rogan, the introduction of many things to many people's lives, I imagine, used to talk about floating all the time. I'd been going up and having... I'd done a float years ago at a hotel in Wales. I then went up and thought, you know what Southampton hasn't got? A float centre. I think it could do really well. And you get the people that go, you sure about this, or you shouldn't do that?
And we're talking, when we talk float, we're talking the
flotation pods.
The containers.
A lot of people like in float world, people hate it if you say sensory deprivation pods, but a lot of people, that's how they know it.
It's certainly how I knew it. And when I've used one before, it's that sensory deprivation you get. It's dark, it's got...
pitch black.
Yeah.
The only sound you can hear. I opened up Southampton's first flotation, and I've got the Rolls Royce of pods. I've got the isopods. So it looks like, think Mork and Mindy, if you're old enough.
Yeah,
the giant eggs, and it's got a lid on it, and you get in half a ton of Epsom salt, 1,000 litres of water. You climb inside. The water is the same temperature as your skin, so is the air. So you quite literally feel like you're floating in midair.
Okay.
So I opened that in 2018. So it's been going nearly 7 years now.
Okay.
For the last couple of years, I've been trying to find the perfect unit. So during this time, like you said, educating myself, holding a mirror up to myself, because what would I need to be the most optimal, most productive, most healthy human?
Yeah.
So gyms, to me, kind of great to own a gym again. I've got ideas for that, but there are plenty of gyms.
There are.
Of all shapes and sizes. There's CrossFit boxes. There's High Rocks is becoming all popular.
Yeah.
If that's not your cup of tea, there's big box gyms. There's small group gyms. I run a small group training boot camp. But
I think you can walk down every high street and find a pure gym now.
At least.
Yeah.
At least one gym.
If not 3 along the same stretch. Yeah. So the gym, yes, we are
saturated. The market is saturated, and
we've definitely changed cultures.
Well, look, I mean, I'd probably say on a Friday night, you're more likely to find more people in the gym than you are in a pub or a bar.
And I think certainly, my 15-year-old, now 17-year-old son, he goes to the gym religiously since he was 15.
Yep.
At 15, for me, I was on a football pitch until the lights were so dark that we couldn't see the football anymore. And then even still, you stayed until someone had an injury.
Well, now there's no limit to when people then go to the gym at 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's funny because I joined a pure gym 2 years ago, just because I thought I need a gym where I can get in and out. I don't have to turn the lights off because I've got access to a different work gym. I've got access to. I just need a gym where everything's there.
Yeah, same.
I'll go at 4 a.m. before I set off for work. It was as busy. Like, I thought this can't be right. I walked in, I thought this is mental. Probably 3/4 of the running machines were full. The weights area, I was waiting to get on stuff. 4 a.m. And these aren't people my age who are, might be sensible enough to go. These are young kids.
Yeah.
And I think, have they gone to bed yet, or are they still? I didn't know. But
it's a different world now.
They're training. I couldn't believe it. And it's sorry, what I was getting to there is plenty of gyms.
There are. Yeah.
But,
sorry, I distracted you.
No. But it's a bit of a segue that the gym, everyone knows to go to the gym. Young men now, it would be surprising if they don't go to the gym. They work out in some form. It's become very as normal as going out on a Friday night used to be when we were growing up. It's pretty normal that these lads go and train together, or they train in a gym. They look after themselves. What I feel is massively lacking is the recovery side of that. And I would probably argue, if you're not sleeping, just sleep. If you just took sleep as one factor, if you're not sleeping right, forget your diet and your gym. It is more important to be recovering. Yeah. Because without the recovery side, without good sleep, you're wasting your time being in a gym and lifting weight. Because if your body can't recover, your gains are massively dropping. Yeah,
and I've already said how important sleep is to our mental health. Is to our physical health is just the same, and that's where we grow. That's where we repair when we're sleeping. And if you're not sleeping, you're not getting the gains. Yeah, and it is important. You can't burn the candle at both ends.
So that sort of mindset of bragging you're not getting enough sleep in today's world, well, what's the point of you going to the gym as much as you do? You're actually better looking like really dialing down and being disciplined on your sleep, going to bed at a consistent time, having quality sleep. So it's not enough to get the hours in. It's about breathing efficiently, where it comes in with the oxygen advantage stuff. So nasal dilation, mouth taping, all the stuff like that, making sure your room's pitch black. Even if you've got an eye mask on, you can get really decent ones now. It's not like a fluffy one with, Love God written on it, or something, or from an Ann Summers set. Or,
I think I had a British Airways one for about 2 years.
I mean, that's all well and good. That was made by the cheapest manufacturer at the cheapest bidding cost. But you can get really decent ones now, ones you can't even feel they're on. So if you really suffer from light pollution in a room, but that room should be cold, dark, you should be breathing efficiently, making sure that there's maybe, if you're one of them people that worries what your phone's doing, make sure it's over the other side of the room with just your alarm. The only thing that's going to go off is your alarm. Yeah. Don't have a clock in the room. Psychologically, I wake up and I see it's 4:05.
Do you do the countdown?
Well, in your head, you're like, oh, God, I've got to be up in 55. That's a stress. Yeah. So straight away, your subconscious is going, well, you've got to be up in a minute. What's the point in going back to bed? Maybe you should get up.
And what people don't realise is we sleep in 90-minute cycles. So you going back to sleep sometimes for 50 minutes, you'll wake up groggier than if you'd had
I mean, the 90. I think the thing is, sometimes if there's a visual cue like a clock, even the nice little dull ones with the green numbers on or whatever, and you wake up, now you might not actually be awake at this point. Like, you might wake up and your eyes will just go back. You see it with kids all the time. You go in and move them. Yeah. And they look at you and they go straight off to sleep. Now, you might do that at your clock, but if your brain's got a cue, it will really wake you up. So get rid of a clock in a room. You don't need to see a clock, because you actually might just go straight back. You might come up into your awake time, but you can drop down quite quick back into your REM, then your deep. But I think what I'm trying to say is, if there's no distraction in that room to give you a cue, to give you a stress point, you're going to sleep a lot easier. But making sure, like, for me, it's being cold. Yeah. I could have the window open all year round. Yeah. My girlfriend can't. She'll wear woolly socks to bed. But for me, I've got like one of those Oola pads. So this is like a thing that you put under your bed sheet, and it's got like a box that goes under my bed, and it's essentially it pumps cold air, pumps freezing cold water, and keeps that at about 15 degrees.
Okay.
My mattress.
Yeah.
It's not on her side. She's got a heated blanket on her side. I could have that on all year round.
Okay.
And what it means is you can have your blanket over you, so it just keeps your body temperature. It keeps you. A room should be cold for you to optimally sleep. It shouldn't be too hot. It shouldn't be too cold, but that's a good temperature. It should be cool. That just doing that, breathing efficiently, darkness, right temperature, you are going to see more energy. You're going to train better. Because you're training better and you've got more energy, willpower and the discipline to keep, to really stick to a rigid diet is not going to be broken. Willpower is an energy-based system.
Yeah.
If your sleep is shite and you haven't been breathing efficiently, so you're going to wake up thinking, I feel like I've only had 3 hours. How have I had 8 hours sleep?
Yeah.
You didn't have 8 hours sleep. You had 3 hours.
Yeah.
Probably the equivalent of, and if you've got sleep apnea, if you're doing that like that,
battle I face every
you
morning.
might not open your eyes, might be aware, but you might have done that every 5 minutes. Well, imagine waking up every 5 minutes normally. You're going to feel like shit.
Yeah, I fight that battle every night at the moment, so I'm always trying to improve my sleep. So this is educating me right now in terms of what I can do. I'm one of these people who sleep with a fan on all year round.
Yep.
I have frequency music playing because it relaxes me as I sleep.
Yep.
So I do certain bits, but the sleep apnea bit is the main key for me.
That's a killer.
Yeah,
that is.
Unfortunately, I don't want to go down the medical exploration of it yet. I want to find holistic if I can. But then I'm going to move this on to the point now where your business is at, because you are now setting up what I would call probably a premium recovery centre.
Yeah, Elevate, which is going to be the name of the clinic. So I've got my float centre. I do sports massage. I do sleep coaching. I do breath work. It's all culminating into opening up a clinic in a really nice part of Southampton. I can't say exactly where yet. Very nice place. And it is going to be I'd probably say the most comprehensive wellness clinic in this country. If not, this is not what I'm setting up to be a destination, but it is going to be one of the most comprehensive wellness clinics in the UK. It's going to involve my flotation pods. I'm moving. It's going to have the equivalent of like a doctor's physio room. So I'm looking at recruiting some osteopaths, some physios. I'm going to be doing sport. I've got a whole team of sports massage people, possibly podiatry. We're having in there. I'm going to be teaching the massage side. We were talking about this before we come on here.
We were, yeah. So it's going to be a centre of excellence for training as well for people coming into that profession. We're going to be
producing some sports massage therapists out there, and we're going to add more things we'll be teaching out of there. But it's going to have a Zen massage room. So think of things like sound bath, hot stone massage. Not everyone likes a sports massage.
No.
Not everyone wants to have their back clicked and manipulated. That's fine. But there are people, but it's a form of wellness to have someone just put hands on you and have a relaxing massage. Now,
it's part of connection that humans crave.
Yeah.
We crave that. Sports massage sometimes is a necessity if you're doing sports like we've both done during our years. The body can only take so much. Yeah. So we need to reset it. It's another form of care. But yeah, that softer approach is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too.
And you've got to remember, what is wellness? Well, what makes you happy? What brings it down? So look, I'm not here to get into that. There are people that will go, well, that's a load of woo woo. Does it make you feel good?
That's all that matters.
It can, that's coming across wrong. I'm not. If something makes you feel good, so if listening to binaural beats when you go to sleep, some people go, that's just music. Yeah, but what if it makes you sleep better? What if that makes you feel better? And it's not a placebo effect, because if it's the effect on the mind. Yeah.
And you're right. We go back to 1985, 1986. If we had talked about meditation to certainly my dad and my granddad, they would have been, that is woo-woo, hippie stuff.
Yeah.
We don't touch that. That's not what a real man does.
Yeah.
You know, and that's generationally where we're changing, because there is science behind meditation, behind self-reflection.
Breath work. Imagine telling people about breath work 40 years ago. You'd have been laughed out of the place.
It's like, it always reminds me of David Jason when he's Del Boy, and he's always found things, and you know, but it was always so far away from where society had put the norm barrier.
Yeah.
And it is. But we are now sort of saying, well, actually, Western medicine isn't always right. There is holistic approaches that have worked for centuries and centuries, and we're rediscovering that art.
Well, have a look at it this way. So, like, there's a few other treatments I'm putting in there. So we've talked about the flotation pods. Getting in one of those pods for an hour can reduce cortisol in your body's stress hormone by up to 40% in a 1 hour session. You are not going to find one pill or medicine other than if you want to start going down the heroin route, where it's just gonna, and obviously that's not, but I'm talking about, and there's nothing that you can put in your body that is going to drop cortisol out of your body as good as that.
And people don't realize, when we talk cortisol, cortisol produced during fight or flight, we need it. Cortisol produced during exercise, we need it. But when it stays in our body, it becomes harmful to us. So bringing cortisol out, it does reduce our life expectancy. Unfortunately, a lot of our diet raises cortisol. Caffeine is a massive cortisol raiser, isn't it? In terms of, because it's a stimulant.
Like, again, going back to the sleep. So, like with caffeine, I do talks for the police now. I've got some stuff that's something else down the pipeline to do with breathwork recovery. That I always tell people. I just wrote something for the MOD Police Men's Health blog for Men's Mental Health Week. Yeah. About timing of caffeine. Caffeine can have a place as it's a stimulant. So if it makes you feel more like there's benefits to caffeine, 100%. Yeah. But let's put it this way: you're on a night shift, and your shift finishes at 6:30. Oh, and I've got an hour's drive home after that. Now, when you're lagging at 5 a.m, we used to pop down the local SO, and you know you're seeing the work vans coming the other way. Double espresso before you go home. Nice Red Bull, yeah. Nice, yeah. No, lovely, yeah. To get the amount, that's a common. Any police officer will tell you. Anyone who's worked night shifts, the caffeine, the stimulant drinks are coming out.
But it's okay because it's sugar free.
Yeah, well, it's sugar free. It's fine. So that's healthier. But what that does is the caffeine bonds with adenosine. So in your brain, when you want to go to sleep, your brain releases adenosine. That's the sleepy chemical. Caffeine bonds with that. So I've had my coffee now at 5 a.m. My double espresso, my triple, I've necked a Red Bull, whatever it is. You've had a high level of caffeine. That's fine. So maybe I'm a bit perky. I'm like, you know, you're going home, you're rubbing your eyes, but you're alert-ish. Yeah. You drive home. You get home, 7 a.m. Maybe I've had a shower. That's a great thing to have a really cold shower before drop you. So have a really warm shower, drop it to cold. That does something to you as well. That makes that stimulates the body ready for sleep. So you go to sleep. Now I'll collapse in exhaustion. The caffeine is stuck to the adenosine until, if I've had that at 5 a.m, that's on your brain to 11 a.m. So if I'm in bed from 7 a.m. to 11, in that period, you are not going to get any decent sleep because that caffeine is bonded to the adenosine. Your brain is not switched off. It's stimulated. I used to do it all the time where I'd wake up at 11:30 in the morning, 12, like, and I'd look at my phone, and then I'd have this patchy sleep where I'd wake up in a panic, and you know, I'd be caffeine to the gills, right up until like I'd need that to get home, so I had a long commute home. So there's that side of things. So that's something I educate people about with the sleep side. It is important, especially shift workers.
Yeah, like, and it almost goes back to the gym side of it again. Is caffeine's used in every pre-workout. There's a reason why. Yeah. And a coffee before the gym's great, but people don't realise that you are killing some of your gains by having caffeine after you've worked out, because the cortisol levels will stay high.
Well, yeah, because we were talking about the cortisol levels in people. Like the umbrella effect of cortisol is increased inflammation in the body, increased inflammation around your heart, around your organs. It also stops gains as well. So if you're you're one of these gym bros and you want to get massive, well, if you're not sleeping or if you're full of cortisol, well, guess what?
You ain't getting those gains.
You ain't getting big as you could be. You're not optimal.
Yeah.
So this centre is, I've got a sauna, a full spectrum infrared sauna and a cold plunge.
Okay.
In the same room so that you can do contrast therapies, cold shock proteins, that control in the nervous system. I'm also getting a hyperbaric oxygen chamber in there. So
that's really specialised for those with sports injuries and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, let's just say, for instance, even if I'll just take let's just take diabetes as one.
Okay.
Diabetes is breaking. That disease will it will break down your capillaries. The capillaries being smaller than the veins, breaks down those capillaries. That then breaks down the veins. That's when your toes start falling off. You get diabetic foot ulcers appear on your feet, on your legs. That's your body dying. What it does, hyperbaric oxygen creates new pathways. It crushes, is that the right word? Shrinks oxygen down to half its size. So when you're in this chamber that we'll have, you'll be breathing in 90% pure oxygen. And then that is reduced down in size because of the atmospheric pressure. So it takes you down the equivalent of 10 meters under the sea, pressures that oxygen and floods your body with it and forces the body to create new capillaries, new pathways to stop what diabetes does to your body. It can help people with symptoms like cancer, like MS, multiple sclerosis. It can help if you just take into the fact that the effect it has on anti-aging, on injuries. If you've had surgery and you've got a 12-week recovery time, well, how would you like a 3-week recovery time? Getting that hyperbaric.
Yeah, and it's been something used by footballers and stuff for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of reducing injury layoffs. But
yeah, absolutely.
It seems like we've gone off on a tangent, but we haven't really. But because this, for me, then the centre shows you that mental and physical health are so entwined, and we have to look after both. And to look after both, we need recovery centres, and we don't do it enough because, like you said there, the education you've just given on caffeine and sleep is a massive thing for a lot of people that are probably struggling with the most common depression and anxiety because we fail to sleep, yet we probably take in more caffeine. So some of these places, just having that centre and what we just talked about shows how entwined the two things are. So very educational for me, and I'm really excited about the launch for this place.
Yeah,
and when we do get to the stage that you can start naming it, we are going to promote the hell out of it. I promise you that. But you know, I'm really grateful that you've come on and what you've shown me today, Jarrod, and as we've talked, and I'm hoping everyone will appreciate the share that you gave because that was big.
I didn't really think when I walked in here, like I thought we'd be talking more about I thought the majority of this would be what I was just talking about, the centre, the breath work, the sleep, and I guess for me, I just thought, well, that is part of, you know, when you said introduce yourself, and then because, you know, like I say, I'm a family man first before anything, but, you know, those children, you know, they're not with me now, but they're still my children. And I think, you know, actually, when you think about mental health and seeing, like I said, just the platitudes people do and how I would approach it if someone had that, just to say, even if you say, I don't even know what to say to you, I can't even begin to describe, but just to let you know, like if you want to talk about it, just don't want to shout, scream about it. If you want to go somewhere quiet, I'm here, just to let you know. And I think definitely in terms of men's mental health, it needs to be more of a brotherhood now. It needs to be where
A community
of people where you don't, it's not just a deep breath in and I'll just crack on, because it will come back. And like I said, for me, I've had to divert my energies into different places. I still think about my children. I've had things like counselling, unsuccessfully a lot of the time, but I have had it fairly recently. And to talk about that, and that it comes up, and it's not something I thought would come up. But people need to talk, and people need to, I think the stigma is slowly eroding around it, and it's a great thing. There's nothing, and if it'll be down the same route as cavemen when people go, well, you shouldn't be talking about that. You're a man. It's like,
I think we've got to a point now where we are talking, but we're seeing action.
Yeah.
And I think things like this podcast, you coming on, and I've got to say, inspirational in terms of what you've been through and the journey you've been on to show that path of recovery and what you've learned along the way. Inspirational, and I take a lot away from this conversation. And that's what this podcast is about for me, to hear other people's perspectives. Every human's got a story. There is no one's is better than someone else's. They're just
all
different.
They're different.
And we're building a community now where people who listen to this, I want them to be able to say, do you know what? I feel safe to talk. And if they're never ready, then that's fine, because you don't have to talk. All this talk of it's okay to talk. Yes, it is. But if you're not ready, don't. There's no pressure on you. Let the people who are ready to talk, let them talk and change the world in a positive way if they can.
And like you said, it's just the worry is that someone finds the drink, finds the right drug that takes the edge off of it. But that will be waiting for you down the road whenever you come off it, and you'll destroy yourself in the meantime.
If you ever get off of it.
If you ever do. And it's...
the lucky ones do, some don't. And I can only say, and I'm really appreciative for you sharing. And I didn't know you were going to share that. To me, it's blown me away, and I've learned a lot during our conversation today. So, Jarrod, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, that ends our discussion with Jarrod. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being you. This was Hello You, where real conversations create real change. If today's episode moved you, challenged you, or simply made you feel seen, then share it, talk about it, and be part of the ripple. And remember, no matter where you are or what you're facing, you're never alone in this. We're building something together, and there's always room for you. I'm Dan Darwin, and until next time, be kind to your mind, be kind to yourself, and hello, you.